What is the worst example of rich people problems you have seen? My rich friend has had to respray his car multiple times because a peacock on his land keeps seeing his reflection in it and attacking it like crazy. Edit. Thanks for the gold. I knew someone who traded in his Porsche and bought a new one every year. His parents were wealthy. Died when he was in his teens and left him a multi-million-dollar trust fund. What was sad was that he felt that he couldn't pick up women without flashing his cash and expensive sports car. But he would dump them all in a couple of weeks because they were only into me for my money. Loneliest guy I ever met. Edit. He is not Batman. His parents died in a car accident and his butler's name is Davin. Not Alfred. Wife is a flight attendant. Wife. What would you like to drink? Passenger. I'll have a water. Wait. Where is your water from? Wife. What? Passenger. What country is your water from? I only drink water from France. Complaining about your allowance from your daddy at age 30, which is the rough equivalent of 2 average salaries. Or complaining that your dad bought you a used car instead of a new one when you were 21. He only spent 10k. The girl could have been thankful that he even bought her a car. They bought a new yacht because the wife didn't like the beds. Girl in college lost $6,000 in traveler's checks, but doing the paperwork to have them replaced was too much bother. I'd have offered to do the paperwork for a cut. I had friends who had to break their phone. It was the latest iPhone model and perfectly working, but there was a newer one coming out that they wanted and their parents would only buy it if their other one was broken. I had to endure these kids throwing their phones against walls and being frustrated that their phone wasn't broken yet. My friend wants to marry her boyfriend. They are going to school in America but are both from China, her Beijing, him near Shanghai-ish. They both pay $60,000 year to go to high school here. However, she can't marry him because his family only owns 2 houses in Hangzhou whereas hers owns 7 in Beijing. Left square bracket. Edit. Rich people benefits. A lot of the other students simply buy their citizenship, obviously illegally, if they are not the brightest and can't get into the esteemed American schools their parents expect. Edit 2. OHP apparently one can legitimately buy their citizenship. Who knew? However, it seems like it takes a long time, whereas the students would be going to school here next year. I'm not sure of the details. My rich aunt doesn't let us park in front of her house because it makes her mansion look bad. She should buy you guys new cars so that it won't look bad when you park there. When I was in high school, my family was pretty poor and I had a fairly rich friend. My single dad spent years saving up for us to go to Disneyland. We finally went when I was 16. Fast forward a year. My friend is going to Disneyland for Halloween break. Her dad told her to invite 2 friends. So she invited me and another girl. I was freaking stoked. But she kept saying, I don't know, it's probably going to be boring. My grandma takes me to Disneyland like every break. And when we got there, all she wanted to do was sit on benches and text. All of the rides were boring and she'd already been on them dozens of times. It ended up being pretty boring for me because I didn't want to go on the rides without her. Halloween break. Wait, what? Young girl, about 5 years of age, getting ready to go into New York City to visit her grandmother, NJ suburbs. She was at her aunt's house and did not have a pair of shoes that she liked. She called her chauffeur. Told him which pair of shoes she wanted. The dude got the shoes and drove some 20 miles to deliver them, and she told him he got the wrong ones and he was an idiot. No one in the family thought this was inappropriate. Watch The Queen of Versailles. It's riveting. And all about rich people problems. And it's not about Marie Antoinette, as the title would suggest. It's a documentary about a ridiculously rich family before and during the Great Recession and the effect that the housing crisis had on them. Close bracket. Edit. Whoops. I'm usually a stickler for affect versus effect. Edit. There you go. I actually fixed the error. My favorite was when she was at Hertz Rent-A-Car and asked the front desk guy who her driver's name was. The look on his face was priceless. A person I know only drinks Evian or Voss water because he is allergic to tap. Edit. I am not ripping on him for not drinking tap, but for only drinking what is regarded as luxury water. Edit 2. He lives in a wealthy neighborhood in America. Edit 3. Once again, I am perfectly fine with him only drinking bottled water. He may be allergic to something in tap for what I know. I just find it crazy that he will only drink certain kinds of bottled water. Evian is naive spelled backwards. My cousin's best friend yelled at her dad and said that she hated him because he wouldn't take her to London to buy a dress, even though the exact same dress was available from the exact same store back home. She needed the one from London because they make things better over there. Has to buy up all of the surrounding plots of land to get some privacy. Super yacht docked in Italy at a high-end marina. Owners wanted the bottled Perrier water for a party they were having in a day or two. They wanted the marina to supply them with a pallet of said water. Marina said it was against policy for them to get a pallet of water to their boat. So they get a private jet from America to fly in a pallet of said water and get it dropped to the boat. Price was about $28.00 US as far as I remember. But even that amount seems low for that. I had to help a girl pay her tuition bill. She was upset because she genuinely thought the process of putting in credit card information was difficult. Yes. She took her dad's credit card and paid $20K for the semester like it was buying a stick of gum. Drove a client's wife home from the airport after the first big snowstorm in Boston this year. I felt so bad as she told me, "Yo, Roger is so sad. They could only clear the snow from in front of 2 of our garage bays. He wanted to take his BMW out, but he's stuck driving my Mercedes for another week." Apostrophe. Oh. Well, how does he go on? Had a former friend who went into despair because Hurricane Sandy flooded her living room of her childhood home. Told everyone she was homeless now and she knew what it felt like to lose everything the way her Jewish ancestors did in World War II. Thing is, she had an apartment she lived in on the island. Her parents owned several more vacation homes up and down the coast. They were a little inconvenienced maybe, but far from homeless. One guy I know on the island lost a boat during Sandy but ended up finding a different one in the middle of his house. Whoa. That total lack of perspective. I worked for a gal who had a speaker go out in her Ferrari and she refused to drive any further under those circumstances, so she pulled over to wait for one of her house staff to bring her the Porsche. True story. I was invited to a graduation party hosted by a very wealthy couple whose daughter had just graduated from Yale. Her father came out in front of the guests, displaying his Rolex and Cartier watches, asking which one of the 2 expensive watches the group thought would be the more appropriate for the occasion. Everyone just looked at each other silently, not quite sure what to say. That peasant. No Pateks. Audemars. Vacher and Constantine. Back when the recession hit, one of my very best friend's family was very distraught because they had to sell one of their 3 private jets. I occasionally hung out with a kid whose dad was super rich. He would just ask for money and get it. He tried to use our ATM and had no idea how to. So he asked me or someone else to get money for him. It was so confusing for him. Most simple tasks were because he was raised not to lift a finger. I worked for a non-profit that helped extremely low-income women start their own business. These women would give up food to SCR pay together enough money to join our program. One of our EDs said she wished she could relate to our clients more, but she has never been poor. She owned 2 homes in one of the most expensive zip codes in the US. Also, another woman, whom I really did respect but not always agree with, believed people chose to be in poverty. We would debate for days about that statement. I realized working there that people who run advocacy programs for poverty have no idea what it's really like. This is a problem because policy and lawmakers are looking at these institutions for advisement on drafting new social safety nets and welfare programs to help the working poor, and they just have no clue. It motivated me to go back and get a master's degree to fight this. I grew up super poor and can speak from experience, not theory. My boss complained to me recently that they own too much land and too many properties. She's like, don't own too much land and properties. A kid I know claimed he wasn't rich, saying, I don't get to pilot my helicopter as much anymore. The guy sitting next to him and prompted to define an income bracket for middle class couldn't answer. He eventually arrived at a $700,000 annual income as a rough estimate. I live in the part of my country where internet is really expensive. 16 megabits per second plans are considered plans for extremely rich people. One fine day, one of my friends threw a fit at his dad because he was getting 15 megabits per second instead of 16 for like an hour. Holy did I live on a 2 Mbps connection, which turns into a 512 kbps connection after a 30 GB data cap. I just moved to a 50 Mbps from a 2 Mbps. Life is not the same anymore. I saw a guy on Instagram who couldn't wait for a car he custom ordered, so he went and bought one from the dealer while he waited for the custom one. I've heard of this more than once. Custom orders on high-end cars can take a long time, 6 months, a year, maybe more. Sometimes the dealer will throw in a cheap lease of a stock model until the custom build is delivered. Don't know if this is a problem exactly, but I was on the tube in South London and a bunch of young banker types in fancy suits were there with their equally well dressed arm candy girlfriends. And one guy was like, everyone keeps telling me to get a Bentley but I'm more of a Lambo man. This was at a point in my life where I was living off cute one boxes of pasta from Tesco, so it was a bit of a surreal moment. The movie This Is 40. Honey, we're in debt and both our businesses are operating at a loss. Okay, let's go spend the night at a nearby luxury hotel and order room service. I'm a nanny for a rich family. A few examples. When I get paid in cash, my boss says, man, now I'm gonna have to go all the way to the bank to get more cash. When they travel they prefer 2-bedroom suites. One time they could only get a 1-bedroom and he said, well, that just ruins the whole trip. My car got broken into and I mentioned it felt so awful to drive it knowing someone was in it. His idea of empathizing? That happened to me. I had to buy a new one. Edit. Not wanting to go to the bank isn't the annoying rich thing. It was annoying rich thing because he had $500 still in his wallet, and it was annoying that he was complaining it wasn't enough money to have in his wallet. Edit 2. Some of you have asked me to do an AMA, so I am now up on our casual yammer. If you want to know more, please feel free to ask me anything. My mom works at a Baptist church. The pastor makes somewhere between 90 and 100k a year with all his insurance and gas paid. He is rich as hell. Owns 2 homes and has a ton of money on top of his salary. When he takes mission trips and pastor conventions, he holds offerings to pay for his airfare and everything else. Meanwhile, other people that come with him pay their own way. This is a church full of poor and retired people. Was at a marina in the Bahamas to do laundry. Stock up on water and supplies with my 25-year-old beta sailboat. Was walking the dog when I met a guy walking his dog. He was off of a 140-foot boat with substantial crisply uniformed crew and could not stop complaining how the Bahamas government had charged him $250 for a 6-month cruising permit fishing license, same rate I paid. BTW. He went on and on. How they don't have lighthouses, buoys, etc. He had to be paying that much to dock for the night, let alone crew and fuel. Boat probably cost 10 million or more. I ended the conversation by saying I had paid more than that for the bottom paint which kept barnacles from growing on my hull. An executive had to have repairs done on the bridge that went to his 75-acre estate. And so the bridge had to be closed. This created issues where some staff members who normally went home every day had to stay overnight and certain staff members got the day off. My mom's got a new boss at her not-for-profit domestic abuse prevention job. The woman didn't like the line of work and had even told some of her employees she was only there because she enjoyed not asking her husband for spending money, which is actually respectable. However, she didn't enjoy her work environment and had over half of the current staff replaced with people she felt better suited her work environment. Within 2 months of her arrival, 6 of the women earning less than $40K a year, most of which who were single and depended on the income, were let go. Basically so this woman could find her workday more tolerable and so she could spend her money on non-essential. There's a neighborhood a few towns over where all the sports players and ek live. And I just watch as they take their golf carts from the front door all the way to their detached garage. That's the size of a second house. And try to decide what model sports car to take out today. Don't they get creeped out that some dude is just watching them go about their lives? Camp counselor for 9-13-year-olds from wealthy families, and each afternoon was cleanup time. There were 3 kids in my cabin that had never used a broom before. No. I thought they were joking. But after watching them struggle for a bit I realized they were serious. My parents had me cleaning house and tending to the yard since I was very young. So it was one of those WTF moments for me. If you grew up in a house with carpet and no yard, is it weird to be used to vacuums and never touch a broom? Listening to someone who makes $100K plus a year complain about how their taxes went up $50 to fund healthcare for other people. Was watching one of those rich version of MTV Cribs. Couldn't remember the name of it. I think it was for RVs. Anyway. Dude has 2 75-inch TVs on the same corner of a room. With one of the TVs on the left side of the corner and another on the other side of the corner. When asked why he said it's too much work to change positions so I put another TV on the other corner so I only have to turn my head. My aunt. I generally don't like the looks of gold watches either and would not wear them. A cousin of mine is on his 3rd Porsche 911 after he wrecked the first 2. He told me that his parents said if he destroyed it again, they'd buy him some other car. He wrecked the first one while drunk. And he somehow didn't injure anyone. I don't even think he got charged with a DUI. 2 more. My family usually charters our own plane whenever we go on vacation. It costs something like $6,000 per hour or something. One year the company overcharged my dad for a minuscule amount. I think it was like $1 grand. And he was considering disputing the charge or something. Ignoring the fact that $1K is nothing to us. And he already paid $36,000 for a flight. Oh. And my parents hate tipping the pizza guy for some reason. They have no problem tipping a waiter 50% or even 100% at a fancy restaurant. But the pizza delivery man? That. Pretty good. But about the overcharge. I don't think it's stingy to complain about being charged $1K over even if it means nothing. Tell your dad to save that grand for the pizza guys. Vladimir Putin has stolen so much money for so many cronies that he cannot leave power. Because no one in the world could keep him and his family safe. Not his generals. Not every mercenary and security professional in the world. Had a roommate in college from New Jersey. Where both parents were very successful lawyers. When Sandy hit a few years ago, he was completely distraught. Their 3rd and 4th beach houses were ruined. Edit. I'm not saying rich people shouldn't feel bad about losing property. I'm simply saying that the mere possibility of losing your 3rd and 4th houses is probably a rich people problem. Edit 2. And now this is my top comment by far. Thanks guys. Certainly wasn't expecting this kind of feedback when I wrote it. You're all awesome. At least he cared, wasn't indifferent. Still has perspective on what a house means and its value. People are trying to bathe in the disease-ridden Nile River and here I am complaining my shower's hot water runs out too quickly. Just wanted to throw out some perspective that to a lot of the world we are the rich assholes. Wealthy kid in Texas kills and cripples multiple people due to drunk driving. He gets away with a super light sentence because the judge buys his affluenza defense. My dad is a self-made millionaire. He accomplished it through hard work. And he raised me just as toughly as he was. He didn't want me to depend on money. I have some experience with people of my status. One girl I know convinced her parents to move so she could be closer to the horse stables she liked to ride at. She upped her dad's drive to work and her mom's, and her little brother had to change schools in 8th grade. The worst time to pull a kid out. Get this though. She made her mom buy her favorite horse. She also would try and make me buy her a horse. Because I was rich and I didn't need my money like she did. That's not rich people problems. That is worse parents award. When the British invaded India, the king of a city did not get up from his throne because the orderly who used to put shoes on his feet had fled and his ego didn't let him get up and save his life. I would be wary of stories of the weaknesses of conquered kings. The victors wrote the history after all. I live next to one of the greatest wealth per capita places in the world. A guy over on the island had the problem of his priceless art in his winter home being in vague danger from potential hurricanes. And he wasn't comfortable with the idea of it being moved out of the house when a hurricane was coming. His solution was to buy a decommissioned submarine and have it buried underneath his estate. Then have a hallway built to it. And that's the place he puts his most valuable art pieces at this particular home if there was an impending hurricane. My mom, while driving her Range Rover, sipping Starbucks, toting a Fendi purse, she turns and says to me, "Your father never gets me anything good. All of my stuff sucks." I just started laughing. Thank God. So did she. I have to drive over to my beach house for internet connection because our fiber optic is being set up today and I wanna watch HBO Go. Nah, the specifics may vary, but going to extreme and complicated lengths to get back online during a brief outages. Like the great uniting struggle of our generation. I work at a MMJ dispensary. On top of the type of people you can imagine patronizing this type of establishment, we have a large number of disabled and low-income individuals. It just comes with the area we're located in. In an effort to assist these people, as well as helping senior citizens and veterans, we offer a discount on the buds. We had a woman call in outrage because she wasn't eligible for a discount and even went as far to say, "I own my home. I work hard. Where is my break?" Bitch is a stay-at-home wife married to some well-to-do lawyer living in a nice area on the outskirts of town. She wanted to compare her situation with people who have lost everything to fund treatments for their various diseases. That bitch. I'm shocked at all of these horrid comments. I have never broken so many monocles reading a Reddit thread. This girl in high school had to fill up a $100,000 Mercedes for the first time. So she decided to fill it up with diesel. Couple weeks later she had a replacement Mercedes. Edit. They're spoiled kids. First generation rich people are pretty normal. Their kids are S. Don't generalize. One of the sweetest and least spoiled friends of my kid is from a rich family. First iPhone at school. Expensive horse riding lessons. Best clothes but totally down to earth, kind and considerate. Have a friend. Nicest person ever. We have kids the same age. Husband pulling in millions a year. High profile job in sports. Can you watch the boys for a while on Sunday? Hubby wants to go to the Super Bowl and I can't get the babysitter over before 6. Yeah, I got that call on the Thursday before the Super Bowl. Long story short, she is miserable and neurotic. Her kids have been to 5 different schools, and the oldest is only in 6th grade. She literally has nothing else to worry about, so she overthinks everything. Money doesn't buy happiness. It just takes away the mundane that 90% of us worry about. You still have problems, but now your problem isn't the cable bill or the car payment. They are much, much bigger. I'd much rather be happy than rich. But who knows? I could be wrong. And I might just be telling myself that because I'm broke. A girl I know started a Kickstarter to pay off her personal debt. so she could achieve her goal of being debt-free by the age of 30. So she could focus on her art, which is photography. She spent her 20s traveling Europe doing art, which is photography. She grew up in a rich suburb with rich parents. She wants to focus on her art, which is photography. Some people just have it hard. We wouldn't understand the complex mind of a camera. Sorry. Artist. I knew accidentally cracked the screen on his iPhone 5 and then proceeded to smash it even more so that he could force his parents to get him a new phone. The next week, he had a 6 Plus.